Jacksonville was called out uh, in the national news for being kind of a mess, and it was called out on Fox, and so I decided I'll play. Uh,
Expressed the opinion that Jacksonville is, as he put it, a mess and needs to be revitalized, adding that city leaders should be embarrassed. Tark is joining us now with what some local leaders have to say about this. Tark?
Well, I tell you what, Killmeade's statements are not sitting well at all with city council members and the Chamber of Commerce who are responding. One council member is questioning if Killmeade thinks Jacksonville is so bad, why did his family buy a house in Ponte Vedra Beach 3 years ago? We tried to reach Killmeade as well. He has yet to respond, but city leaders, however, are not holding their tongue.
But when somebody just takes a shot at, Duval County and Jacksonville, I think they might need a little kick in the
City Council President Matt Carlucci not holding his anger and disappointment at statements made by Fox and Friends host Brian Killmeade on national television about the city of Jacksonville. Late last week, Killmeade started out talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars before the unsolicited criticism.
They probably get on the winning side of things. At least this was their big spending spree.
What do you mean rebuild their city?
It just is, it's a mess.
Really?
I mean, the city needs to be revitalized. It's got all this potential overlooking the water.
As we heard on the radio today, Killmeade also taking aim at Jacksonville city leaders after apparently taking heat for his comments.
Now they make it I'm the enemy now. And I think you use me whatever you need to rebuild the city. Because these city officials should be embarrassed by what they've left for the people. The people of Florida and Jacksonville deserve better. The Jaguars deserve better.
I mean, he's sitting back in Ponte Vedra in probably a very large house and enjoying his trappings and so forth, while there's a lot of people in Jacksonville who are doing the hard work, the day-by-day work of making Jacksonville better.
Carlucci points out that Killmeade failed to mention Jacksonville's ongoing renovation projects, the beaches, or the people of North Florida, who Carlucci considers to be one of North Florida's greatest assets. This afternoon, we also heard from the Jacks Chamber. Its president and CEO, Daniel Davis, saying this about Killmeade. He obviously doesn't know what he's talking about. He's welcome to come to Jacksonville anytime, and I'll be happy to show him why we are one of the hottest markets in the country. It is worth noting that Daniel Davis is seen as a potential candidate for mayor, and his political committee has raised more than $3 million since January of last year. News4Jax has learned late today that Mayor Lenny Curry of Jacksonville agreed to appear on Brian Killmeade's show this weekend. Curry said earlier this week that he invites Killmeade to see the billion-dollar renovation projects that are under review, saying he thinks Killmeade would be impressed instead with Jacksonville.
so a couple of the problems with that was before he was kind of mentioning that one, that he lives in Ponte Vedra, and that it's that he lives in a very upscale place in Ponte Vedra, and that that he's out of touch with Jacksonville. And yeah, why would you want to buy a place in Jacksonville? We'll get into that. Also, Jacksonville Beach is a separate place from Jacksonville. They're not tied together. Jacksonville Beach has a separate city government. So to say, to point out Jacksonville Beach, that's that's comparing apples to oranges. Jacksonville Beach is not part of Jacksonville. And I think that was Matt Carlucci to almost suggest violence of like that Brian Killmeade needs a kick in the ass. That's not really necessary.
One of the most read stories on News4Jax. Brian Killmeade slamming the city of Jacksonville on national television and on his radio show.
And now Killmeade has even more criticism for the River City. Tarek is joining us now with what Killmeade said now. And Tarek, Mayor Curry has agreed to an interview with him.
The mayor has agreed to an interview, and I've got to tell you, a lot of viewers tell us that they want Mayor Curry to defend the city, not be meek and mild-mannered in the interview. Killmeade told his national audience that the Jacksonville landing was torn down because of too much gang activity. He also blamed Mayor Curry for a failed revitalization project that was being brokered with Jaguars owner Shad Khan.
But the city is not nice. I mean, ask a Jaguar. Ask them if they hang out in the city. Ask them how the landing's going. Oh, they wrecked it because there's too much gang activity and shootings. That's just the fact.
It's blistering criticism from Fox and Friends host Brian Killmeade on his national radio show, talking about the River City and taking aim at Jacksonville Mayor Lenny Curry.
So this mayor gets all offended because he's got projects in the works and it's come a long way. It doesn't mean it's there. It doesn't mean the city hasn't been let down. It doesn't mean they've been unable to work out a deal with the richest owner, I believe, in the NFL, Mr. Khan, Samir Khan, who owns the Jaguars, to revitalize that city.
It's unclear why Killmeade has taken such a keen interest in the city of Jacksonville. Although News4Jax has learned he owns this home in Ponte Vedra Beach that real estate websites estimate is worth as much as $3.9 million. Killmeade's house.
So a couple of things. First, Brian Killmeade is on Fox News, and he's a conservative, TV host and radio host. And, here he is. He's actually, both criticizing Jacksonville and also criticizing our current mayor, who's also conservative and a Republican. And he's doing that even though he is conservative, which might go to show that Brian Killmeade is actually, pretty upset with the direction that Jacksonville's going. I'm pretty upset with where Jacksonville is. Jacksonville's had a lot of potential. I came here because it had a lot of potential. I still think it has a lot of potential, and unfortunately, it is not tapped a lot that it has to offer. But also in this short segment, with them pointing out that Brian Killmeade has a house in Ponte Vedra and basically showing his house, it's like our news media is like doxing Brian Killmeade and being like, hey, here he is. This is where he lives. You can go 23 miles, and here's the directions. Here's the address. This is where you need to go beat up Brian Killmeade and protest outside his house about how good Jacksonville is. So, we have our city council basically talking about kick Brian Killmeade in the butt, and then we have our news media basically being like, hey, here he is. This is where he lives. He's 23 miles away from you.
This is nearly 23 miles away from the downtown of the city that he called a mess on national TV.
It just is, it's a mess.
Really?
I mean, the city needs to be revitalized. It's got all this potential overlooking the water.
News4Jax insiders are torn on whether Killmeade has a point. Michael writing, another Ponte Vedra know-it-all. Move to Duval and then run your mouth. Killmeade doesn't pay taxes here, nor does he vote here. I know that isn't as sexy as a five-star hotel with a river view, but one more hurricane may put his site underwater for a few weeks. DC writes, he's 100% spot on. We moved here from Melbourne, where there were so many ways to access the river and many places to go for a nice meal on the river. Here you need a house on the river for the most part to enjoy the great resource we have. Guess the truth hurts. Here's what Mayor Curry said yesterday about a radio interview scheduled with Killmeade this weekend.
Well, they were kind enough to reach out. They reached out to me. And it's just an opportunity to sit down and speak in context, about where we were as a city.
Locals tell News4Jax they're hoping Mayor Curry will passionately defend the city of Jacksonville in his upcoming radio interview instead of turning the other cheek when a conservative talk show host criticizes his town.
The city officials should be embarrassed by what they've left for the people. The people of Florida and Jacksonville deserve better. The Jaguars deserve better.
So late this afternoon, the city told us the mayor has recorded this interview with Killmeade by phone today, and it's going to air sometime tomorrow night. Now, News4Jax wants to hear from you about Killmeade's comments on the city of Jacksonville. I mean, is he right to criticize Jacksonville? Does he have a point? Or do you think there's a lot more positive to point out than negative? Let us know inside the story on news4jax.com. You need to be a News4Jax insider, but it is free to sign up. Just go to news4jax.com/insider. You just need to.
Yeah, so that was their
Continues to
interview.
be
let's go to the next thing. And then there was they already did the response. This is, Killmeade basically brought up Jacksonville, and then about a week later they had an interview with our mayor, Lenny Curry, who is a conservative.
You were spot on. There's a lot of unfulfilled potential downtown. When I got into office in 2015, I inherited $2 billion in pension debt that had been ignored and was crippling our budget. There was no money to spend on downtown or infrastructure around the city. I put forth a plan to reform that. We solved that problem. And we've been doing things downtown to prepare it for development. There were old buildings that had to be knocked down, that had been neglected and left behind. The Jacksonville Landing, which was not of good use anymore. Another condo that collapsed over a decade ago that people left on the waterfront that I was able to finally take down. These are things that are preparing for major development on our riverfront. So and we now have the funds to do it.
Right. So the Landing, so they're doing the Super Bowl. You hear about the Jaguars. I love the team. I have some coaches, used to coach in New York, became coaches with you, know people working there. And as I go to the stadium, I was just stunned to see so many empty stores. I only saw one sports bar the day of a game where I could see all the potential there. I'm a fan of Jacksonville. I'm concerned you're going to lose that team unless something happens. Do you have stuff in the works, which is, I believe, the nicest guy and the richest owner in the NFL? Is something you can do to combine with him to revitalize the city?
Yeah, a couple things. We've just partnered with the team and with Shad Khan on a sports performance complex. We also have a major deal that we've agreed upon on a Four Seasons and other development on the riverfront across from the stadium, also including tens of thousands of square foot in a museum of science and history that will be relocating downtown. So yes, projects in the works with him. I'm incredibly disappointed. I think you had talked about maybe you'd heard about a deal that we had potentially with him last year. My administration, we spent well over a year negotiating a $1 billion project, public-private partnership that would have been retail, residential, with him. Took it to City Council, 19 members of City Council. It needed 13 votes. It got 12. City Council voted it down. Very disappointing, missed potential. But to Shad Khan's and the team's credit, they've remained engaged. We have a new deal, as I said, with the Four Seasons and other development. Where the old Landing was, the proposals to...
Like have an outdoor mall situation?
Yeah, to proposals there to develop that property as well and leave park space and green space.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Killmeade. I want you to do me a favor.
So a couple of things about that. One, you'll notice how many times Shad Khan comes up. Shad Khan is a billionaire owner of the Jaguars football team. He doesn't, I don't think he actually owns the stadium, or if he, I don't know what that whole deal is, but Shad Khan has been involved with several things downtown. He has gotten his hands on just about everything, and there was some criticism years ago. People were calling him Sham Khan because he was like shamming people, and he made his money by like making bumpers. Like he made a patent for bumpers for cars. As far as actually helping Jacksonville, I don't know what he's actually done to help. He's gotten tons of money from the city government for improvements. He's gotten money for the new billboards, which I'll point out later. But it's kind of like a lot of money from Jacksonville is going to help Shad Khan and the Jaguars just keep losing and losing and losing, and it's just become like the Jaguars are just like this huge money sink that all of the downtown Jacksonville money just ends up just going to Shad Khan and the Jaguars.
City leaders are sharing their thoughts in an interview between Jacksonville Mayor Lenny Curry and Fox News host Brian Killmeade.
Killmeade hosts One Nation and owns a house in Ponte Vedra Beach. When talking about Jacksonville on national television last week, he described the city as a mess. News for Jax reporter Aaron Farrar is joining us live from downtown. And Aaron, Mayor Curry says that Killmeade was, quote, spot on with his criticism of our city.
Mayor Curry also says here in downtown Jacksonville, there's a lot of what he calls unfulfilled potential. He says one of the biggest failures was the Lot J project that would have been here near TIAA Bank Field. That's that billion-dollar project for redevelopment by the city council that was voted down by city council by just one vote last year. It would have been a private-public partnership, as retail and residential plans could have come with that. Mayor Curry says he was disappointed with the plan failing, in addition to the needs for other parts of downtown to be redeveloped.
There were old buildings that had to be knocked down, that had been neglected and left behind. The Jacksonville Landing, which was not of good use anymore. Another condo that collapsed over a decade ago that people left on the waterfront that I was able to finally take down.
City Council members Reggie Gaffney and Matt Carlucci gave their opinions of the interview. Councilman Gaffney says he supported Lot J. He says it failing was a learning experience for the city and could be encouragement to push for more redevelopment in the future.
I think we need to make a conscious effort. We are elected, the 19 of us plus this mayor. And there's some things that we need to see moving forward, and then I think we need to come together once a year and talk about, I think the city's on the right track, but I think some things we can do different.
Councilman Carlucci, who was against the Lot J project because he said it wasn't well done, wrote Killmeade opposing his criticism of the city. Carlucci also sent News for Jax this statement on the mayor's interview this weekend. He said in part, quote, "I credit the mayor for taking on the interview and thinks he did a very good job. He very well explained the pride we all take in the great city of Jacksonville. We all know of our untapped potential. Much of that potential is being done and will begin to unfold soon. Every city that cares about their people has untapped potential as well." All said, I consider his interview a win for Jacksonville. During that interview, Mayor Curry also talked about some of the plans in place right now for some of that redevelopment in the city, including redevelopment along the riverfront, as well as the partnership with Shad Khan, the Jags owner, and city council, with the new Four Seasons Hotel on the way, and the building of that $120 million practice facility for the Jaguars that's expected to open by the start of the 2023 season. Reporting live in downtown Jacksonville, I'm Aaron Farrar, Channel 4, the local station.
You were spot on. There's a lot of
So you can see again how many times Shad Khan and the Jaguars pop up, because downtown Jacksonville is basically just dependent on Shad Khan at this point to basically save downtown. There's almost no other investors, no other billionaires that are coming in, and he's the only one really offering anything for the development of downtown. So he kind of just keeps teasing city council and our local government, and then they give him, incentives, and they take up, 50% of a project or whatever, and then they go forward that way. So this is a typical photo. Whenever you're going to see a photo of downtown Jacksonville, you're always going to see what used to be the Modus building, which is now the Wells Fargo building, and then the Jacksonville Landing, which was recently torn down. The Jacksonville Landing was incredibly old, wasn't very safe anymore. There were at least 2 or 3 shootings down there before they ended up closing it. And there was a food court upstairs that was not clean, and I hardly ever went to. And all these big buildings here are all just banks. So you've got Everbank, which used to have the name on the stadium. It used to be Everbank Field. It's now TIAA Bank Field. And then there's Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and then the ViStar building, and Everbank, and BB&T is over there too. And the one building that they normally focus in on is that Wells Fargo building. And recently I went there and I looked at the building, and you can see it's basically like falling apart. Like the overhang stuff is falling off of it. They have a dumpster out front. There's windows that have cracks that are kind of like boarded up. The windows are dirty. You can see all these cracks all the way up on all these windows going all the way up. Um, so that Wells Fargo building is not in good shape. And everyone's taking photos of the Wells Fargo building and all those banks, and if you look at them up close, they are not in good shape. I don't think it's just from the pandemic. They're just not taking care of these buildings that are there, and you know, these are the few things that are really left downtown, and they're just not taking care of them. So as far as the other things that are downtown, you've also got MOSH, which is the Museum of Science and History. You heard Mayor Lenny Curry mention that MOSH was moving. MOSH is currently on the South Bank near the Friendship Fountain, and they have a plan to move to the North Bank at some location. And that's been probably in talks for a couple years now. So I don't think they've broken ground on it at all yet. Here's Friendship Fountain. You can see right behind it is Mosh. So they're right next to each other. You normally see a lot of really nice, beautiful photos of Friendship Fountain looking towards, the Modus Wells Fargo building and the bridge and everything. That fountain is really only good for taking photos. It's not really like a real park. You can't walk up this spiral thing. It's closed off at the bottom. You can't get into the fountain. It's not like a pool or anything. You can't have kids play in it. So it's really just for taking some photos. Sometimes they put the lights on. Other times there's just a big fountain, and there's, what's the whole point of this fountain anyway? And even going over here, there's some very limited parking, and that whole museum is a very small. I think there's only 2 or 3 floors. Not much going on in there. There's like a very small aquarium, or not really aquarium, but like little zoo area inside the museum. And then there's like a small little like conference room, and they've got this JEA little demonstration thing in there. But there's really not a whole lot of anything in that museum. So as far as the biggest problems with Jacksonville, the biggest problem is obviously crime. And crime and employment are kind of like, the chicken and the egg. Uh, you know, you need good jobs so that people aren't committing crimes. But on the other hand, if you have a lot of crime, you can't bring jobs because, you're not safe going to work. And so you can see, this website, Area Vibes, I think is a pretty good representation of what Jacksonville's like. Crime is incredibly horrible here. Employment's pretty bad. It's not enough, but it's a D. Housing's cheap, so that's a B. Schools are a C minus, and I'll get into that a little bit later. And then user ratings, which, obviously people are just not happy here. And if you look at where all the crime is, a lot of it's downtown, some of it's on the north side, but most of it is concentrated downtown and really, the urban areas and around that. So, as far as like where people are living, if you work in Jacksonville, there's a good chance that you live in St. John's. Or there's some people that, might even live closer to St. Augustine. Like the safe and nice areas to live are St. John's, Nocatee, um, maybe down by like Middleburg. Um, Nocatee is really expensive, but it's a nice area to live. St. John's is less expensive. They have better schools, and it is just outside of Jacksonville. So that's a lot of people end up just moving to St. John's to get out of Jacksonville. Um, and then up north you have Amelia Island, and that's a nice area. That's like a small town. And then the problem is like, you know, living in Jacksonville is really tough. If you're actually going to live in Jacksonville, there's tons of crime anywhere inside this beltway, and especially, you know, in these areas. If you told me that you lived on the north side, the west side, or you live downtown, or you live like near Main Street, I would think, you know, you're living in like a high crime area, and it's probably not safe. You also have like 103rd Street over here, which is a pretty rough area. Um, Jacksonville Beach is obviously nicer because you've got the beach and everything. It still is a little bit difficult out there. Um, the nicer areas are obviously Atlantic Beach and Ponte Vedra Beach, but this whole strip going east to west and then inside the Beltway here, all of this is really tough. And if you have a choice, you're probably going to move to St. John's and just get out of this crime area because it's really bad. So there's that, and then obviously there's gang warfare that's going on in Jacksonville, and I saw this news piece recently, which was really just crazy. But they were detailing the fight between these two gangs. One is KTA and the other one's ATK, and these are both in Jacksonville. And they're basically making music videos of the different people that they're killing of the other gang.
Now to our I-Team investigation, Killer Beats. Rap music videos about murders in Jacksonville fuel fire in the community.
Mothers of the victims are speaking out, saying the videos and lyrics have gone too far, giving specific details about the horrific crimes. I-Team investigator Corley Peel is joining us live to show us how this deadly music videos, how they are really damaging families. Corley?
Well, Tarek and Stacy, many of these parents I've spoken with are still waiting for arrest, or they're waiting for a trial for their son's murders. While they wait for justice, music videos from rival rap groups in Jacksonville have gained popularity across the country with songs glorifying their son's murders. The music and beat are catchy. Gaining millions of views and plays on YouTube and streaming services. Local rappers rising to fame with lyrics about murders of young men in Jacksonville.
And you know we smoke little biggie.
The victims behind the lyrics are sons. What is it like when you see your son's name and his murder talked about in these rap songs?
It's like somebody taking an open wound or a healing wound and opening it back up and stabbing at it over and over again.
I hope and pray that, you know, the person or the persons who are rapping about, you know, that they understand that you have a mom too, and would you want your mom to feel the way the other moms feel?
JSO says the different rap groups known as ATK and KTA are rivals on the streets. ATK and KTA, those are the groups that we hear about a lot. Are they the biggest problem for Jacksonville?
They have been recently, for the most part.
In this music video,
And now I wonder what I said. Got a low, I told her drop that. FNSP when the head ain't got the kite back.
the man in the green shirt is Kenyatta Bullard. He's known as rapper Young and Ace. He was a sole survivor in a deadly quadruple shooting at the town center in 2018. In the video, he wears an ATK chain around his neck. The lyrics reference 3 men killed in shootings.
Ooh, I smoke, baby. Ooh, I smoke, Tiki. Ooh, I smoke, Lana.
One of the victims, known as Bibby, is 16-year-old Adrian Gaynor.
He was joy. All he did was laugh and dance.
He was shot and killed in the Hilltop Village apartments in 2019.
Nobody can do anything worse to me than killing my child.
It took 2 years for an arrest to be made. The man accused of killing him is Hakeem Robinson, known as rapper Queso.
Play with queso. Smoke dirt and baby to the face though.
Robinson is charged with second-degree murder. Gaynor's mother, Elizabeth Gaynor, says Robinson and other rappers continuously mocked her son's death in music videos and on social media for years.
And you know we smoke little baby.
Specifically, what has been said about your son in these songs?
I've heard anything from where he was shot. I've heard what his last words were.
Baby had a close cut, so I wasn't surprised.
This is not the only murder Robinson is accused of. He is also charged with second-degree murder in the 2020 death of Charles McCormick, a.k.a. rapper Little Buck. His father, Abdul Robinson Sr., and his brother, Abdul Robinson Jr., are also arrested in connection to the crime. JSO says the Robinsons are linked.
So I'll cut it off on that, but there's obviously more to that video. And that shooting that was at St. John's Town Center, that was a pretty big deal because that shooting was actually right where the right where it joins with 295 and going into UNF. So a school was right there, and then it's like right at Town Center, and a lot of the businesses have basically been moving to Town Center away from downtown because there's so much crime downtown. So having a shooting at the Town Center was a really big deal because there's a lot of people there, and if there's gang warfare going to Town Center, that's a big deal, and that's going to discourage a lot of people from going out and shopping. If you're not going to feel safe, you're not going to want to go out shopping if you're going to get shot. And then, if you're just looking up like things that, Jacksonville North Side, Jacksonville West Side, the only things that pop up are people getting shot, rapping music videos, getting stabbed, fatal shooting, drive-by shooting, and it's, pretty similar if you, look for the West Side. There's really like nothing good going on. There's just people getting shot and stabbed. And then, here's a video
Have
of...
you seen this unusual sight? This is on
Street
Google
View.
Street View that's raising questions tonight. You'll find it online right now. When you look up 22nd Street in Jacksonville's Brentwood neighborhood, you can see one man holding up cash and the other one flipping off the camera while the other one's holding what appears to be a gun. News4Jax reporter Allison Henning joining us live near that area. Allison, what are people saying about this? Have you seen this unusual sight?
So, yeah, obviously crime is really bad here. That's probably one of the biggest factors in Jacksonville is the crime, and people just don't want to move here, deal with the crime, and they, if you're not going to feel safe, you're not going to want to go shopping, and you're going to be less likely to, go to work and, get a job and things like that if you're worried about getting robbed, stabbed, or shot. So the next thing is our airport, our main one is JIA, which is Jacksonville International Airport. This is an airport that's on the north side, and there's a big shopping complex that is a little bit east of JIA. When you're driving out to JIA, there's a bunch of hotels and things like that, some restaurants, and a lot of them are closed or like closing, and they're not really well taken care of. And then after COVID hit, it became even worse than that. Recently, when I one of the last few times that I went to JIA, there were only like two like 737 jets, actually parked at the actual airport. Um, so you can see in the photo behind me, I don't know how many terminals there are. There's probably, uh, I can probably guess 10, 16, something like that. But driving by, you can see that last time I was there, I could only see like two planes that were parked there. And that was like a normal day. And then if you look up the actual flight list of, arrivals and departures coming into JIA, like there's not a single one is international, not a single one. So, JIA is really a international airport in name only. There's not really any international flights that are coming into Jacksonville. A lot of the connecting flights for international travel are going, Houston or Miami or something like that. And there's really nothing international at JIA. And even with the domestic flights that we have, there's very few. You're probably seeing like two every couple hours or something. There's not many flights that are actually coming in and leaving. So, JIA is hardly international airport. As far as our schools, and I'll get out of the way a little bit. So you can see Duval is right here, and so if you follow the whole line here, we're the only school that has double digits of F-rated schools. So let's see if I can. So you see Duval County, 32 A's, 33 B's, 38 C's, 27 D's, and then 11 F's. So we're the only school up here that has double-digit F-rated schools. And here's a readout of some of the schools as they're itemized. And there's a bunch that are just C's and F's, and the schooling in Duval County is not really good. When people have kids in Jacksonville, they move to St. Johns County, or they move north. They don't want to be in Duval County because they don't want to go to schools in Duval County, and there's a lot of people that know that. UNF, there was a moniker a while ago where UNF stood for You Never Finish. It used to be, when I went there, they were like a leader in affordability, and they were they were rated like one of the best, cheapest schools, and they no longer advertise that. UNF has never really been a leader in technology or research. A lot of the technology and research are going on at UF, UCF, FIT, maybe even like UMiami or something. They're not a leader in online classes, and I just took a screenshot of their online programs. They have a total of 3 online undergraduate programs for ASL, health administration, and nursing, and that's it. So there's nothing for programming. There's nothing for computers or anything like that. Their accolades, I don't really know what their real claim to fame is anymore. The other thing is UNF right now, they're also searching for a new president. They don't have a president of the university right now, so they're searching for a new one. And then in the video that the mayor was talking about, or that he was talking in, he was also talking about the shipyards, and that was another project that they were talking about bringing in the Four Seasons Hotel. and also working with Shad Khan and the Jaguars. And you can see, they're talking about these things coming together and that they're bringing the Four Seasons in. Well, a year ago, they were saying that the shipyards and district were in limbo. In June, the clock ran out on Jaguar's owner Shad Khan's rights to negotiate a redevelopment. Plans to redevelop shipyards appear to be sinking again. And that was more than a year ago, so that was back in 2021. Again, here we are, we're relying on Shad Khan. He is teasing Jacksonville with all sorts of development and, teasing that he'll be the savior of Jacksonville. And we give him, incentives and we give him rights, and then he just, he pulls out of the deal, and, at the end of the day, he's still going to be a mega billionaire. And in the meantime, Jacksonville is just decaying and falling apart, and no one else is really stepping in to help. This is the downtown Laura Street trio. People have been talking about redeveloping these three buildings for the longest time. There's practically been no change in these buildings in the 10 years that I've lived here. They were talking about fixing them up during One Spark, and that was in like 2013, 2014. And these buildings are still decaying even right now. You can't go in them. You can't do anything with them. They're just boarded up, and they're old, and they're falling apart, and there's graffiti, and there's, they're just falling apart, and they're really not doing anything to redevelop them. No one wants to put up money. No one also wants to take them down, so they just stand there forever. They might be there another 10 years too. So beyond that, downtown we also have the Prime Osborne Convention Center. And if you look at the events that we have at the Prime Osborne, as of this recording, there's only 2 events that are currently planned. There's the Stomp Down Experience, and there's Combat Night Pro Jacksonville, which you could probably find Combat Night just walking around Jacksonville. You don't even have to go to the convention center. However, if you compare the Prime Osborne Convention Center to the Orange County Convention Center, which is in Orlando, and maybe I'm comparing apples to oranges here, but you only see 2 events scheduled at the Prime Osborne in Jacksonville, and you have 108 scheduled at the Orange County Convention Center. The Orange County Convention Center is really nice and big. It's beautiful. They have tons of nice parking. It's safe there. You go to the Prime Osborne, there's there's these parking lots that are crumbling, falling apart. That's if you're lucky. You might just find like a grass lot. It's old, outdated, not safe. Very few events going on there. So years ago, in 2013, 2014, I think for about 3 years, there was an event called One Spark, and One Spark was it was a crowdfunding festival. I think it was one of the first crowdfunding festivals, and I attended at least 2 of the years that One Spark was going on. I knew the founder, Elton Rivas, who also had the co-working space downtown, and they threw this One Spark event. I when I attended, there were just tons and tons of people that were coming to the One Spark. There were tons of people that were interested. Um, and it was actually a very big boom for Jacksonville. I still know people that mention it. And, there's still people that are wondering, like, hey, when is One Spark coming back to Jacksonville? Well, the funny thing about that is One Spark is never coming back to Jacksonville because it got closed down. Um, I think at one point people were wondering if there was a problem with like funding and stuff like that. Um, and there was also some involvement with Shad Khan with One Spark. He was also doing like some of this shark investment funding, which I almost got selected for at one point. And I don't know what other funding there was that Shad Khan was involved with. But basically, after 3 years, they couldn't continue running One Spark, and it fell through. And it, each year it was probably bringing at least 300,000, if not like 300,000 or more, which Jacksonville is a city of about like 1 million or like 800,000 or something like that. So to bring 300,000 people is a lot of people. That's almost like bringing maybe like a third or maybe like a quarter of the population is in growth when One Spark was going on. So that was a pretty big deal. And after that fell through, a lot of people started losing hope and losing faith in Jacksonville, and people started to demoralize after that, after 2013, 2014. I also knew a lot of people before this that they were talking about, there's like nothing, this was back when I was young and, 24, 23. I knew a lot of young people that were talking about like, hey, like, there's nothing to do in Jacksonville. I'm bored here. Places are closed, and so I knew a lot of people when I was living here, when I was younger, that they just got tired of Jacksonville and they just decided to start moving, other places like Miami, Orlando, um, Tampa, whatever. Jacksonville also had some opportunities with makerspaces. I was a part of one. I started one called Jack's Hacks Makerspace. And so up here you can see we opened Jack's Hacks. We had like an 8,000 square foot makerspace in the 700 Union building, and we ran that for about 3 or 4 years. It was about like around 2014. We actually had Jack's Hacks at One Spark for 1 year, and we never had any public funding, and we ran it for a little while, and then we had some membership issues, and then we ended up closing Jack's Hacks Makerspace, I think around like 2015 or something like that. And then we actually got like a lot of popularity where we were always going out to Art Walk and everything like that. And then after we closed, then there were several other makerspaces that tried to pick up where we left off. There was one called Collab Jacks, and they opened a space in the Landing. They also had a space that was like just a couple doors down from where we had space in the 700 East Union building. So they were completely just riding on our coattails and trying to pick up business, but they did not have nearly the amount of equipment or space or tools or anything else that we had. So really, like when we closed, that was closing the door on Jacksonville having like a real makerspace. And they also tried to open a makerspace in the library downtown, which that was really kind of a sham. The people that ran it just had like, two 3D printers and like some knitting supplies, and here you go, that's your makerspace. And it was really, kind of pathetic as far as a makerspace. They didn't really have any tools. It was a very quiet area. You couldn't do nearly anything you could do at Jack's Hacks. There's also this Jack's Makes, which I've heard about them. I don't know how far they actually got, but I guess they existed, and I don't know anything else about them. I've since stepped out of the whole makerspace scene. It seems like it hasn't really panned out, and there's other makerspaces that closed after us. And then Jacksonville's also been flirting with the idea of a spaceport, and having a spaceport at Cecil Field. And is this a spaceport? A hangar and like a concrete pad. Is this a spaceport? There's not really, it's not really a spaceport. It's still like an idea. Like they don't have nearly anything out there that's really, a spaceport. They've been talking about like I guess upgrading this air traffic control tower, and I guess that was part of it. But also, there was supposedly like some protesting where there was like a vote on whether they should continue with the spaceport, and people were voting no on the spaceport. So, as far as Jacksonville having potential, it's like, here, would you want to be the future of space? And Jacksonville's like, no, we don't want to be part of, the future of space, and like, go do your rockets somewhere else. And so, we have the potential of, all these different things in Jacksonville, and here's the potential for a spaceport, and we're saying no to it. Also, featured at One Spark was this aquarium, and this idea for an aquarium has been floated for a very long time, and they were also talking about putting it in pretty close to the shipyards, and honestly, they probably have enough space for it. There's also the park, the Metro Park, that hardly anyone uses, and so there just there wasn't enough push for this this aquarium project. Someone did a fair amount of research into it. They presented it at One Spark and other things, and no one's interested in actually investing and throwing money at it. So it potentially would be a good place for an aquarium, because we are on the river, and Orlando is 2 hours away. The aquarium at in Georgia, I think, is like in Atlanta or something. So as far as having an aquarium in Jacksonville, it kind of might make sense. But there just has not been any traction on that in years. It's probably been at least 6 years this idea has been floated, and nothing's happened with it. And then as far as the Jaguars, we're basically always coming in at last. We've had what was it? We had that new coach, Urban Meyer or something, and then there was that quarterback with the mustache. There was potential with him, and basically, like, oh, and like there was Tim Tebow or something. We had him for a while, and it's like, we get this potential, and you know, looks like something might happen, and then we just completely either just blow it, or things get screwed up and people leave. And so there's absolutely no traction on the Jaguars, and all of our fans are just always just very demoralized and sad. I think the one game that I went for the Jaguars, I showed up, and then by halftime, like only like a quarter of the stands were actually full, So, and all of that is very awkward and ironic, because even with having this football team and having the stadium and having us lose all the time, they ended up investing tons of money in this scoreboard. So, and then not only that, but we brag about how we have a bigger scoreboard in Jacksonville than they do in Texas. Um, and so yeah, we've we couldn't get a winning team, so we bought the biggest TV instead, the biggest scoreboards for the Jaguar Stadium, TIA Bank Field or whatever. So yeah, it's kind of like a consolation prize. These scoreboards are pretty crazy though, because like sometimes when you're driving in to downtown, there's so much of a glow from the scoreboards. You can just see the glow from like a mile away from the scoreboards, which would be even cooler if we actually had a winning NFL team, but we probably never will. Um, and then as far as the other potential of like office space in Jacksonville, um, we have a lot of vacant space, and so this is an estimate of total vacancy sits at 21.7%. This is in 2021. Um, but I mean, like, if you actually look at like the buildings that are there that are just empty, that you can't do anything with, that are just dilapidated and falling apart, and that are just blight, on the downtown scene. Um, if you included those, there's tons more of empty space, and I think they're just looking specifically at like a couple buildings of like the Prudential, the Deutsche Bank building, RP Funding. So they're probably just looking at like specific buildings and like what vacancy they have. But if you're actually looking at like all the buildings that are empty and useless or boarded up, and just like not useful buildings that are downtown, that number is probably closer to like 30% or like 50%. Like every other building is maybe useful, or like you can actually go inside or something like that. But like, a lot of the buildings you just can't do anything with. Um, Industrial buildings, like, I guess that's good. Total vacancy is at 4%, which is, I guess, we're doing more as like an industrial city than we are as, as an office type city. And you can see that the office market, that rate is pretty close, 21.7 compared to 22%. So that kind of verifies between those two sources. And then, we have all these other places in Jacksonville. We have the Regency Mall, which was like one of the earlier malls in Jacksonville. After you have downtown, then you have the Regency Mall, and then you have the Avenues, and then you have St. John's Town Center. And I'm not even going to look at like the whole thing here, but Regency Mall is just not safe. I've never even been in there because of the horrible reputation that they have there. Um, you know, it's like it just boarded up and it's falling apart. Um, no one really wants to go to uh, Regency Square Mall. Um, even like there's a movie theater that's near there, and the movie theater's not safe. Regency Square Mall is not safe. Um, it's not a safe area, and that's kind of close to like Atlantic Boulevard. Um, so yeah, you know, if you want to go to a mall that's like indoors, you can go to the Avenues Mall. Um, otherwise, the nicer place is obviously St. John's Town Center. So, um, and then you know, as far as the buildings that we have here, um, there's been a lot of buildings downtown that have uh, been torn down just because, you know, no one wants to use them. The Berkman 2 was a building that they proposed, and they were building it downtown, and I guess they lost funding or something to it, and then it stood there for 10 years or something, and then they ended up realizing they were never going to finish it, and then they tore it down. So uh, you know, you've got all these buildings. It's like, you know, you've got all this potential of like, you know, uh, building out downtown and putting up new buildings, and then even when you start a new building, like we can't finish them. Like we'll just tear them down and you know, move on to the next thing. So you know, unfortunately, like Jacksonville has uh, tons of potential. I thought it's had tons of potential, but you know, we're also competing with Orlando, Miami, Tallahassee, uh, you know, Palm Beach, and we're just not doing a good job. I don't know whether it's, you know, city council or whether it's, you know, the amount of crime that we have here. Um, maybe like it's the amount of crime that we have that we can't get jobs, and then we can't get the tax revenue, and then we can't build things. Um, but you know, we've got like a very systemic problem in Jacksonville, and it's not like, you know, it's not a simple thing to fix, but you know, there's been smart people that have tried and they failed and fallen, and we're like in 10 years, you know, I've not seen Jacksonville improve in 10 years. Like I think we're getting worse. Um, I don't really see us getting any better right now. And even just making this presentation, I've been like reconsidering, you know, like why have I been here for 10 years? You know, what if I move somewhere else? Um, and it's, you know, it's because, you know, what's going on here? Like what are we like why am I staying here? Um, you know, we have all this potential, but like we just, you know, we just squander it, and uh, we're just always going to have potential because we're never fulfilling it. Uh, we're not becoming a tech hub. We're not, um, you know, we're just not doing it. Uh, we're not, we're not really attracting a lot of the new business that we need to, and it's really unfortunate. Anyway, I hope you like this video. I think this ended up being like an hour long. Uh, and I only had 30 slides. I didn't even think it was going to be a whole hour long. But if you enjoyed this, you know, please subscribe and like my video, share it with people, and um, yeah, you can also leave comments and tell me uh, you know, if I'm completely wrong about Jacksonville, or if you have ideas for other videos that you think I should do. All right.